Did I? Oh my god. Oh my god. Did I pass? Did I pass? Did I pass? Does this mean I passed? Wait a minute. Did I pass? Did I pass? Is this passing? I don't even know. Is this passing? Hello everyone. I wanted to give a update on my progress with taking the 4 language proficiency tests by the end of 2022. So drum roll. I almost met my goal of taking the 4 language exams. I actually took 3 of them out of the 4, so I guess it's like 75%. But I want to give you an update about how this process went, taking these exams, and sort of my overall feelings. Would I do it again? So let's get started. So for the HSK, the Hànyǔ Shuǐpíng Kǎoshì, that was the one of the 4 exams that I ended up not signing up for. After I made the video about attempting to take 4 language proficiency exams, I actually sat down and looked at my schedule and saw what dates I could take each exam, and I realized that with the HSK, it was going to be a similar time for taking also the DELF exam and the JLPT. The other problem was that the DELF exam and the JLPT were right after each other, and I did not want to be taking 3 language exams in 1 month. Mind you, the HSK, you can normally take it every month. Like, they have more options available. And the nice thing with the HSK is that if you want to, you can take the test at home online. So that makes it really convenient. But I felt like I needed more time to prepare for something like the HSK. So I just had to make the decision that that was going to be the test that I held off into the next year. Because that's a goal that I want to keep for myself, to be able to pass the HSK level 3. I want to make sure I give myself enough time to study for it instead of breaking up my time so small that I'm not prepared for any of them. As for the TOPIK exam, the Korean exam, I used a variety of methods to prepare myself for the exam. So I was taking iTalki lessons just to answer like any questions I had about grammar or vocabulary, things like that. And then also I used a website called TOPIK Guide, and they have a bunch of mock exams. I ended up using this book, which is like a TOPIK study guide. And so it gives you example questions, and it gives you, like all the grammar, all the vocabulary that you need to know. And that was actually really helpful for preparing for the format of the exam. Both that and the mock exam on the website, both together were really helpful. And then I was also using Lingodeer Plus, which is an app, kind of like Duolingo, where there's different languages you can choose from, and it goes over like some basic like structures and vocabulary in fun game formats. So I was using that to practice my listening or putting sentences together, things like that. So I ended up choosing like the resources that I felt like I was going to need the most support in. So I know I needed more help in like the listening department, or I just needed help with the format exam since I've never taken it before. So that's why the resource I chose was really helpful for me. And now I'm going to share with you my thoughts for the exam. So tomorrow is the big day to take the TOPIK exam, the 한국어능력시험. We'll see how it goes. I've definitely been trying really hard to prepare for the harder questions where the dialogues are longer, or like the reading passages are longer, more complex, because that's what's been throwing me off a little bit, trying to hold all that information in your head and then answering the questions while the dialogue is happening at the same time, or being able to read through a bunch of text and being able to get the gist of what is being said so that you can answer the questions. So I've been studying as much as I can for the last few months, and we'll see how it goes. So when I got there, it was at a Korean church. So they had a sign outside of the door, and they also had signs posted on the wall. And when you get there, you have to show your ID. You have to be wearing a mask. They check your temperature, and once they clear that, you go to your designated table. There's one table for each person, and each table has the person's name, their registration number, what test they're taking. And mind you, I was there like 30, 40 minutes early, and I was the first person there, actually. So I got to see them set up the whole room and prepare for the exam, so that was kind of cool. One of the things that's important to know about the exam, actually two I realized. One is make sure that your phone is turned off. If anything electronic goes off, even if it doesn't ring, but even if it buzzes, you will get in huge trouble and your test will be disqualified. The other thing is they give you a special pen to do the exam. You don't use a pencil. It's a specific TOPIK pen. One side is for writing, and that's like a thinner based pen. And then the other side of the pen is a thicker based pen, and that's for your multiple choice questions. And then if you make a mistake on it, you use a correction tape or you use whiteout. So if you have to make a couple of corrections, it's not a big deal, but if you make too many corrections, then you'll have to write on a new answer sheet, and that is part of your test time. So if you have to do that, then you have to make sure you have enough time to transfer over all the answers. But one of the things that did happen was I had both sides uncapped so I could write and then bubble in the answers going back and forth. And I didn't realize how I was managing the pen in my hands, so I have ink all over me. So I just finished the 한국어능력시험. That was very long. Even though it was like only an hour and 40 minutes, that was one of the longest hour and 40 minutes of my life. My general thoughts about the exam, I did feel like the beginning, I felt much more confident because I know it starts easier and then the questions become harder. So by the time it gets towards the end of the test, I feel like I'm kind of just guessing the answers and hoping that I get them correct. So I feel confident that I at least got level 1, but the question is, did I do enough to get to level 2? Definitely the last questions, whether the listening or the reading, went by really quickly, so it's like hard to process everything. I don't know like all the vocabulary words or certain grammar structure, so it was hard to answer some of the questions, but I tried my best, made my best guesses, and we'll see what my results are like in about a month. When I checked the results for the TOPIK, it was a little bit more complicated than I thought, because there's an email that you get before the exam that tells you, where you're going to go, what time the exam is. But then also at the very bottom of the email, they're like, in order to check your results, you click this link. So you have to keep that email. Once you click it, it brings you to a site that's mostly in Korean. So you got to be able to read a little bit of Korean to get to your score. There will be 2 buttons. One of them is check score and the other one is test registration. You then have to input information of what test you took, which for me was like the 84th TOPIK 2022. You put in your date of birth and you put in your registration number. And the registration number comes from the piece of paper that you get at the TOPIK. So once you put in all that information, then you get your score. So for me, my goal was at least to get level 1. I wasn't really expecting to get level 2 or anything. So I was like, at least if I can get level 1. But I try to make sure that I'm not being overly confident about what I'm going to get, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like I did really well in something, and then I find out later I bombed it. So I was just trying to keep my mind open when I was checking my score. And when I checked my score, and you might not be able to see it, but I printed this out, but here's the score. So it tells you how you did in listening. It tells you how you did in reading. It tells you like what your score is versus what the average score is. And then once it gives you the total of these 2 scores, then it tells you what level you got. So in total, I got a 146 out of 200, which means I got the 2nd level in the Korean exam. Oh, thank God. I was not expecting to get the 2nd level. And I'm shocked I got an 81 out of 100 on listening, because that is generally my weaker area, and I felt stronger on the reading. But I realized in terms of my studying, I was focusing a lot more on my listening skills. So now the next goal would be to take the TOPIK 2, which involves the level 3, 4, 5, and 6, which if you want to learn more about the format of that exam, you can go to my previous video about the different exams and what's a part of each exam. But I realized to take the TOPIK 2, because it's a much wider frame in terms of levels, so it has levels 3, 4, 5, and 6, the difficulty level is much harder. And it also involves a writing component, so it's a lot more difficult in the exam. So I don't realistically know if I'll go for it the next year. Even if it's not till the end of the year, I don't know if that's enough time for me to be prepared, because I feel like if I'm going to take it, I want to feel like I'll at least be level 4 or 5. If I try to go for level 3, then like a majority of the exam is going to be really hard and really stressful. So I'd rather be feel like I'm at a certain point before I take it. And then the other thing that I actually recently learned about through the TOPIK Guide website is starting next year in 2023, they're going to offer a speaking portion to the TOPIK exam. I think it's going to be something that slowly gets rolled out because they're starting it in Korea and then they're going to start offering it to other countries. But I do think that's a good addition because, like I'll mention for the DELF exam, the French exam, I actually think the speaking portion is very helpful, and it's a good way of measuring someone's ability in a language besides just being able to do a written test well, like to be able to answer multiple choice questions. I mean, that's one level of skill, but I think it's another skill to be able to speak with someone back and forth. So I'm looking forward to find out more details about what that speaking portion will be like. The way I prepared for the DELF exam was through actually pretty intensive iTalki lessons. I found a tutor on iTalki who does these kind of intensive language classes. And I had asked him in the very beginning, like, do you think in 3 months I can go from very little knowledge I had of French at the time to being an A1? And he said, yeah, I think with you having lessons 2 or 3 times a week, you can do it. So I took French lessons 2 to 3 times a week. Actually, during the off days, sometimes he would actually just have a call with me and talk with me in French to practice. I feel like iTalki, especially the tutors more specialized in the exam formats, are really helpful to prepare for the exam. Before doing the lessons on iTalki, I'd done like a 5-week challenge previously, which again, if you want to see that video, I have part 1 of the video up on YouTube, so please feel free to check that out. And something that I realized about the A1 is a much more difficult level than I think people realize, and even what I realized. Because a lot of people think A1 is like, oh, it's beginner, you introduce yourself, right? You can greet people. And it's way more than that. If you actually look at the official list of what's required for A1, it's this huge list of things you should be able to talk about, right? Besides being able to introduce yourself, you'd be able to, go out and buy something, shopping. You should be able to, go to the bank. You should be able to, if you're lost, be able to ask for directions. You need to be able to go to a restaurant, order food. Like there's just so many things that A1 actually encompasses that I was like, oh, that is a lot. So I feel like, don't think A1 is this very basic level of the language that you only can, say hello and bye and introduce yourself. It's actually a lot more than that. I just arrived in San Francisco for the second time to take the DELF exam, the French exam. I left my house at 7 a.m. because the traffic going to San Francisco gets really crowded, especially in the morning, and I wanted to make sure I gave myself enough time. I realize that I'm like having the feeling of butterflies in my stomach because I know there's the speaking portion of the French exam, so I'm like nervous about that, but I actually don't feel the same nervousness that I felt in the Japanese exam yesterday. I'm more just tired. The entire ride from home to here, I was just yawning like every 5 seconds. So I just finished up with the DELF exam. It actually felt okay. Like it was definitely a very different environment compared to other types of language exams because there's the speaking portion. I didn't realize that they give you 10 minutes prior in a separate room to come up with the questions you want to say. I think if I had to do it on the spot, it would have been much harder. Listening, the nice thing is that the DELF does give you 2 times to listen but I think my listening skills just aren't that strong yet in French. The reading, I also kind of felt, some parts I understood and some parts I didn't know some of the vocabulary. So I'm glad everything is done. I took the JLPT yesterday and I took DELF today, and now I'm done. I need to take a brain break for myself, but I'm glad that I really pushed myself to study languages by taking these exams, so we'll see what next year brings. I think the hardest thing about that exam, that it was the day after the JLPT. Oh, like after I was so burnt out from taking the JLPT, I was like, all right, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I need to leave to go to San Francisco. I think that was truly the hardest thing, was just taking tests back to back. If they were even just a few days apart or a week apart, that would have made a huge difference. But I had to deal with it because that was what the schedule was. So I just kind of pushed through. And then after I took the DELF exam, I conked out for the rest of the week. I have to say, I really like the format of the DELF exam because in that exam, there's the listening part and there's reading comprehension. But there's also a written part, so you have to write a 40, 50 word postcard or letter to someone. There's also a production oral, which is you actually speaking to an examiner. At the very beginning of the production oral, they just are asking you questions of what's your name? How do you spell it? What do you like to do on Sunday? So they get to see your ability to answer kind of basic questions about yourself. And then you get a dialogue, and then you have to be able to go back and forth talking about whatever scenario is on that dialogue card. The nice thing was they give you 10 minutes before the speaking portion to prep. They give you 2 dialogue options, and of the 2, you choose one. And then you also get to choose 6 cards. Each card has a word on it. And then you have to make a question for each word that you're going to say to the examiner. And then the examiner will answer your questions. I felt more confident on the DELF exam than I did the JLPT exam. I definitely felt more prepared for it. I know I didn't get everything perfect, but I feel like I did enough to pass the exam. So I wanted to quickly go over my results for my DELF exam. I received them about 2 weeks after my exam date. And the funny thing was that you get this email, and in the title of the email, it basically tells you if you passed. Conveniently, I found out that I passed. Official document, it will take 3 to 6 months for it to come in, and I actually have to pick it up at the Alliance Française. I remember when I saw this email, I was a little confused because I didn't see the results, the specific scores for my exam. But about a week later, they send you a link, and then that link leads to these exam results. But you also get to see the exam results for everybody else who took the exam. So all the way from A1 to C2 and even the junior division as well. So I'm up here at the top. I'm actually this first line up here. So as you can see, there's these 4 different sections. There's the comprehension oral, the comprehension écrite, the production écrite, and production oral. As you can see, each section is 25 points. So I got a 19 out of 25, 20 out of 25, 23 out of 25, and 19 out of 25. So in total, I got an 81 out of 100, which is a passing score. You need 50 out of 100 at least to pass the exam. I was actually really proud of myself that I was able to get an 81 out of 100, especially, for only studying for 3 months intensively. My next goal is to be able to pass the A2. I want to give myself enough time to really prepare for it, so I probably won't take it for another year or so, because it's an expensive test. It's $135 to take the A1, and as you take harder and harder exams, it becomes more expensive. So I want to make sure if I'm going to spend the money, then I want to be able to pass them. And the interesting thing about seeing these scores is as you go down, you realize that the harder the test gets, the more people that don't pass. And so definitely when you get to these C-level exams, the exams become more challenging. So this would be definitely a long-term goal if I wanted to reach something like the C levels. But for now, I'm going to focus what's right in front of me, which is level A2. And hopefully in the next year, I'll be able to pass it. And now the JLPT, the Nihongo Noru Shiken. Today is the day of the JLPT, and I'm going to be taking the N3. I'm definitely I feel like more nervous for this exam compared to the TOPIK exam, the Korean exam, because I've taken the JLPT so many times that I'm like putting more pressure on myself to do well for this exam. So I just finished with the exam. I'm feeling pretty tired because it was like a 3-hour exam. In the beginning, I felt okay with the vocabulary. What was definitely hard for me was the listening part, which is at the end of the test. It's the last of the 3 sections. And my brain was just so pooped out. It was hard to focus on what was being said and choosing the right answer. And so it felt like I was guessing a lot, unfortunately. Definitely, like, I'm pretty done. I'm really tired. So I definitely underestimated what the JLPT was going to be like, or how hard it was going to be, because, I've taken it so many times before, and I decided to take an easier level, because I think in my previous video I mentioned I was going to take N2, but because I was taking all these other exams, I decided, okay, I'm just going to take the N3, so I'm taking away some of that pressure. So I thought, okay, this is going to be easier, I don't have to prepare for it as much. Wrong. It was one of those things where, just like with the Korean test, the thing that actually threw me off most was the listening, because reading, I tend to practice that a lot more. That's something that I enjoy doing, so that is a stronger skill for me. But I really didn't focus on listening with Japanese, unfortunately. Like, I had been watching some shows here and there, but nowhere near as much as Korean. Like, I was watching 1.5 hour long shows almost every day. So the level of my listening skill was very different. Definitely the format of the exam is what really gets me, the types of questions that they ask. And the thing that I realize about the JLPT is it feels like the questions are meant to trick you. Like, they're trying to give you a bunch of similar sounding answers so that it's more easy to make a mistake. Whereas I felt like with other exams like the TOPIK, the DELF, it felt like the answers were a lot more straightforward. I mean, I'm glad I still took it, but I think I was surprised that it was more difficult than I was anticipating it to be, because I thought it was going to be easier, and it wasn't. So we'll see. The test results come out in late January, February. I mean, who knows if I did well enough in the reading, grammar / vocabulary and got enough points there, and as long as I got the minimal amount of points in the listening section, maybe I'll pass. But we'll see. So I just found out that the JLPT just released the scores for the exam a few days ago. I haven't had the heart to check. So this will be my first time actually seeing what score I get. I've been definitely contemplating for a while whether I passed or not, and I really don't know what to expect. So I'm just gonna try to go in with an open mind and hope for the best. All right, here we go. All right, see your results. My registration, passcode, yeep, yeep, yeep. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. Oh my God, like, I feel like I wasn't this nervous when I got my DELF score and when I was checking my TOPIK score. I like wasn't as nervous, but this one is like making me kind of freak out, because it's, I've taken this test so many times. So I'm hoping that I pass. So we'll see what happens. Let's log in. Did I? Oh my god. Oh my god. Did I pass? Did I pass? Did I pass? Is this me? I passed? Wait a minute. Did I pass? Did I pass? Is this passing? I don't even know. Is this passing? Oh no, I did. Oh, okay. It does say passing. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, wow. I can't remember exactly what the passing score was for the JLPT, whether it was like 90 points or 95 points, but I got 96. I got a 96 out of 180. Not the greatest score, but I'll take it. It's a pass. Like, oh my gosh. Woo! Wow. I actually did better than I thought in the listening portion. That was the one area that I felt I was really struggling in, but it says I got a 34 out of 60. That's not bad, I think. And reading, which I felt stronger in, I actually didn't do as well. I got a 33 out of 60. And then the language knowledge, which is a combination of the vocabulary and grammar, I got a 29 out of 60. My weakest portion was the grammar and vocabulary. And somehow my stronger portion was the listening, which was the one I felt the weakest at. Ugh. This is why I feel like I can't assume how I do in an exam until I actually get my score and see how I do. But, oh my god, that gave me a heart attack. Oh my gosh. Yay! Okay, good. So my overall thought about this whole thing, yes, it was really stressful. Especially taking the DELF and the JLPT one day after the other was a lot. However, I feel like doing these exams, scheduling the exams, really pushed me to study the material. So instead of me being like, oh yeah, I'll study it tomorrow, I'll study it next week, or I don't have time today, right? It's hard to make time for something when it's not part of your routine. So if I know, okay, I have this exam coming up, I better be prepared. So even if it's just watch something for 15 minutes, just anything to help you prepare, it pushes yourself more to studying the material. And so I think for me, I would do it again, but maybe modify it a little bit, especially if I'm going to try doing this starting from the beginning of the year. I'll maybe have a better sense of the timeline of the exams, and then I won't have to put them all at the end, right? So, because the DELF is offered multiple times, and HSK is also offered multiple times in the year. JLPT is normally offered once. So I think based off of, knowing that information, then it's easier to know where to schedule the exams. But yes, I hope that you got to learn a little bit more about my journey with these exams. And if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to comment in the video below and I'll be happy to answer them. And please subscribe to my channel. Thank you everyone for watching and have a good day.